I decided to file for divorce after learning about my husband's autism and cat food predilection, which resulted in dishonesty and marital strain. I promised a 1-week update, but it's been much longer. I could justify myself, but I won't. For those of you who haven't read my previous article, I requested for assistance with my husband's dietary preferences. After speaking with a number of individuals on this site, and eventually his mother, I found out that he had been diagnosed with autism as a youngster. I received some unkind remarks on my first post. Many of the allegations I received still cause me pain. Some people just irritate me, especially the one who said, "Please don't bully him, my goddamn spouse is him. Not a kid, not a sibling, not a buddy from school. It does him no good to infantilize him." Let's go on. Since he had never brought it up to me, I was furious. We've talked about a variety of health-related topics, but his diagnosis has never come up. I want to emphasize this. I'm not saying that I don't want to marry a man with autism. My spouse has been withholding something significant from me, which has caused me a lot of worry that may have been prevented had I known about his condition. For instance, I persisted in encouraging him to try new meals, go to loud amusement parks, or attend concerts. These are all fairly typical couple activities that I wanted us to do together, even though I knew he wasn't terribly excited about any of them. I would have been more mindful of how these things negatively impacted him if I had known he had autism. I tried harder to combine what he enjoyed with things I enjoyed. Perhaps a craft fair in place of an amusement park, or a smaller local band. Anyway, the backstory is that. The update is below. Update. The night before our therapy session, I spoke with his mother, and I questioned him about it. To avoid being upset again, I was careful to bring it up in a light-hearted manner. At first, he attempted to dismiss me by claiming he had no idea what I was talking about. He finally admitted after some time that he had not only been aware of the diagnosis but had purposefully concealed it from me. He said that I was his ideal partner, and that he didn't want to do anything to sabotage our wonderful bond. I described how it affected me that he kept this from me. I told him that rather than feeling the need to hide, I could have been there to assist him. He said that he had no shame about it. He clarified that it simply no longer has an impact on him. He didn't seem to care when I reiterated how it impacts me. Although I didn't show him the post I wrote, I tried to explain why his autism does, in fact, still have an impact on his life by using some of the suggestions from all of you. We were unhappy when we went to bed. He pretended nothing had happened the following day. He had chicken nuggets for breakfast, and we continued with our day. He never mentioned anything, even though I kept expecting him to. Only later, at the marriage counselor's office, did I have the courage to bring it up again. In order to avoid coming off as accusatory, I talked to the counselor and mentioned that this was a problem that troubled me. In fact, my spouse chuckled and said he thought I had moved on by now. He became irate with me and left when I clarified that, no, I hadn't. My spouse went to wait in the car, so the counselor's attempts at mediation were ineffective. I ended the meeting early because I was afraid he might go without me. It was a calm journey home. I didn't express my concern that he was concealing other things from me until we arrived home. He said that he didn't think it was necessary to tell me about autism since he had read online that women don't comprehend it. That's the weakest excuse I've ever heard, I remarked. Then he threatened that if I found out, I would leave him. I said that he is a liar, which is why I would leave him. It seems that he disclosed to every one of our common acquaintances that he had recently received an autism diagnosis, and as a result, I was thinking of breaking up with him. Many of our friends now behave quite chilly and avoid talking to me when we cross paths in public. I'm not sure what else he's told them, but I believe he informed someone that I had cheated on him since awful comments about me and my alleged sexual habits have been appearing on all of my Instagram photos from a phony account. I continue to report them, but it seems like another one simply appears. I'm not sure if getting a divorce is the proper course of action. I'm even more certain that this isn't the man I married since I know he's been looking at websites that cater to bitter men, including incel. One of his buddies is an incel himself. Most of the time I'm simply perplexed. I've been avoiding him at home, and right now it feels more like a roommate scenario. Only when it's time for work does he actually leave his lair. After that, he stays there till bedtime. Just because I wanted to assist, it looks like everything is screwed up. Right now, I have no idea what to anticipate, much less how to proceed. Edit. I didn't realize there were so many more comments. Even though I believe I'm too emotionally mature to respond, I'm still making an effort to at least go through the most of them. The huge amount of support I've received has truly surprised me. Thank you. I will be speaking with a lawyer about getting a divorce. I'm not sure how to approach him about it, but I'm done caring. You're okay. I fear that he could suddenly want to chat when I return home in the evenings. Neither of us is healthy from this. It would be beneficial to spend at least some time apart. For now, that's all. I'm already uneasy with how rapidly this blew out, so I doubt I'll update past this. However, at the end of the month, I'll be moving somewhere else. The second tail is up soon. I'm not sure I can handle my wife's constant chatter any longer. Could it possibly be an excuse to go? Perhaps I should have posted this on a ITEU instead, but I'm not sure. However, let's get started. My wife won't stop talking. I am not referring to your typical talkative Kathy. She will not, I mean nearly literally. Shut up, she will start talking non-stop as soon as she realizes I'm around. Not in the same space. As soon as it's safe to presume that I can hear her, that is. Until I'm gone, and sometimes even after that, she will not stop talking. I've gone into the bathroom on several occasions, switched on the loud exhaust fan, and then come back to hear her happily having the same discussion she was having before I entered. Additionally, she won't use the exhaust fan in the bathroom, as it would make her unheard. In addition to whatever Homeric epic she's droning on about her friend's cousin's girlfriend's hairdresser, I get to hear all the restroom noises. I'm such a fool before we were married. I once drove her from Tampa, Florida to Chicago, Illinois. Without uttering more than 10 phrases. She continued to chat the entire time. All the way. TV onto a program I enjoy? PFFT. That isn't an issue. To keep it out of the way, she will gladly lower the volume, telling me that Olivia Newton-John still has the leather trousers she wore in Greece, and that she still fits in them is the ideal way to have sex. It goes without saying that we never go to the movies. Too many movie theaters have shushed me. I understand. She was raised in the Bronx in a large Italian Catholic household. You don't get to talk at all if you don't talk loudly and continuously. In contrast, I was raised in a Scandinavian household with 2 kids. I don't think we've ever spoken in our home to this day. In fact, I frequently question whether it is what attracted her to me. I learned to listen to others nicely and then wait for them to complete before responding. No matter how long she talks, she never seems to finish or take a breath, so I'm listening to her intently. But it isn't accurate. People with Swedish ancestry also vary in that we don't recognize others with filler words. We are largely silent when listening to others, with the exception of the Minnesota nah, which is helpful in any situation. No need for yeah, or OMG. You only need to nod your head once every 10 minutes or so to show that you are paying attention. It has a lot to do with living in the cold north, in my opinion. Your teeth will break from the cold if you keep your mouth open as much as my wife does. She compares it as being in the presence of a deceased person. She keeps pausing to inquire. Are you even listening or claim you don't listen to me? Or perhaps ask me, what did I just say the final 2 to 4 words, she says. I've mastered the art of remembering and repeating back to her. She will say something like blah blah. She immediately informed him that she would no longer put up with such nonsense. And I'll do that sort of nonsense. As if I knew what sort of shit it was. Or who it was that was refusing to accept it. She will respond, yeah, as if I had been listening the entire time. I make a lot of jokes about it, but it's genuinely becoming problematic. And since she keeps interrupting him, he has developed a noticeable stutter. Growing up in her home, anyone who stopped talking over them for even a moment was seen to be intruding. Additionally, you interrupted them by talking loudly. She essentially leverages my less staccato speech tendencies, which my kid evidently acquired, to interrupt and dominate conversations. It became so terrible that, even when he wasn't being stopped, he began to automatically halt and restart phrases. Before we attended one of those parent-teacher conferences, I had no idea it was a stutter. At least now I know why. Josh stutters. A teacher stated after listening to his wife and turning to face me. As simple as that. This has caused her to fail at least one job interview. I am aware of this as I arranged it with a business associate. He apologized over the phone, but he simply couldn't stand being in the same room as her since she was always chatting. Seldom are we asked to go on a second date with a couple. Every time we go out with other people, she dominates the discussion. Who would want more than one of those? Most likely you're wondering, so, have you mentioned this to her? Indeed. A lot of times. Occasionally in jest. At times in a really serious manner. She is the only person I know who can have a completely unrelated discussion while crying uncontrollably. Her emotions range from rage to tears and from talking louder, higher, quicker, and using a lot more profanity. Her talking less is the one thing that never happens. I make an effort to ignore it. She is a really loving woman. Adores me unconditionally. My child's mother. The day we met was pretty even nicer. We still have a lot of time to ourselves. She won't stop talking while we're doing it, of course, but I'm too preoccupied to really notice. However, it does affect me. It demonstrates a lack of self-awareness and is selfish. Enthusiastic conversations are not always and everywhere they have their place and time. I must respond since I know the solution to the issue. Essentially, the only thing that may potentially silence her is for me to follow her lead. The smallest silence would need me to interrupt. If she tried to interrupt me, I would have to speak louder and shout if needed. I would have to learn how to cut off her protests and stress my views using Italian hand gestures. I'm not Italian, though. I'm a waspy pale guy who grew up in a place that would have sounded like the cafeteria of a middle school. I've finally reached my breaking point after 12 years of torture. I don't think I can handle it much longer. I simply don't know if I'll be able to explain to the judge why I'm at his divorce court. My wife forbade me from doing so. Doctor, the wife won't stop talking. Is it a good excuse to break up with her? Editing is required. I had no idea this would become so popular, Reddit. Which is accurate. I assumed that maybe a few people would simply call me a jerk and that would be it. But inbox, rest in peace. I enjoyed getting to know you. Therefore, I will attempt to address some of the common comments and respond to some of the questions that I saw coming up repeatedly in order to avoid responding to every remark. Thank you also for the frequently humorous suggestions. Is this bullshit? Suggested. A 1, no, much of it is true. However, I will confess to embellishing a little bit for dramatic comedy effect. The statement regarding the leather trousers is illustrative rather than a direct quotation. In any case, not from Hot Times. However, she most likely brought it up at some time. Q2? Before you were married, why didn't you flee in a rage? Was the wife of the op attractive? Yes, she is attractive, humorous, and lively. I was a true Nordic quiet bear, too. Regards, you/Sarah emphasizes dragon fire. I was pulled out of my shell by my wife. And if I'm being completely honest with myself, many things don't seem that bad when you're young and being banged frequently. You are alone to blame for this. Damn you, penis. Third question, did this actually lead your child to stutter? A 3. I can't say this with absolute clarity from a medical standpoint. An official diagnosis of the cause was never made. But I was there to see it happen. Despite the fact that I am not a licensed speech therapist, I believe the conclusion I reached was logical given my observations. However, if only to clear my conscience, I would appreciate a different viewpoint from a real professional. Which results in Q4. Doesn't your child's stammer truly stem from you? You did nothing to stop it, after all. A 4, guilty. And it constantly makes me feel like trash. Just so you know, I did bring it up a lot, even to the point of arguing with my wife over it and being rude to her when she interrupted my son. However, I believe that the most of the harm had already been done by the time I became aware of it. And all I could do was vent my rage over it rather than genuinely changing anything. This strangely lengthy article is merely a tirade. This is the only real reason for leaving, and I'm terrified that if she is granted full custody, it will just become worse or maybe become irreparable. Q5. Is she mentally sick? Select 1, OCD, insecure, or autistic. A 5. Though I've always had an overpowering desire for attention, I don't think so. Her numerous siblings were always vying for their parents' love and attention, which is how I perceive her family dynamic. Q6. Have you attempted therapy? A 6. No, it probably ought to have. However, I know her so well that she would be devastated by the mere suggestion of it. It's strange that I find it difficult to follow many of the suggestions made by others. And trust me, I've probably considered every one of them, because I find them to be just too harsh. Even so, I'm thinking about getting a divorce. That's when I saw the inconsistency.